Hello, everybody. This is the first episode of a new podcast, The Superpower of Confidence. In this podcast, we're going to explore topics of how do you become more confident in yourself, in other people, in the future. And the podcast is called The Superpower of Confidence because people who are truly confident, it almost works like a magical power. We will talk about true confidence and not arrogance. We think that arrogance is just a lack of confidence that's posing as confidence. In this podcast, we believe that our idea of confidence is humble, is comfortable with failure, and self-loving. The podcast will be very personal, and my guest and myself, we will be very open, and we will share moments of doubts, of struggles. And because I want this to be personal, our first guest is the best guest that we could have. I'm going to make a full disclosure. So our guest is Carinne Meyrignac. And Carinne, we are childhood friends. We've known each other for, I don't know, since I was 2 years old. I've known you. I think besides my mother, you're the person that I know the longest in the world. Carinne and her husband are witnesses that I actually did a comedy set at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. They have the proof. And the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast, Carinne, is that I called you a few weeks ago and I was absolutely freaking out about my decision to have quit my job and so much uncertainty in what was about to come. And you shared with me that you were going through, same sorts of emotions yourself when you started your entrepreneurial journey. So we're going to get into all of this. But before we start, Carinne, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and also introduce your project, Cali Books, so that our listeners can understand what it is.
So thank you for inviting me, and I'm very honored to be your first guest. That not only make my mother very happy, but that makes me also very happy. So thank you, Ben, for for this proof of friendship. So in addition of being your childhood friend, I'm also publisher. So it's hard for me to say it because as you speak about confidence, it was very hard when you changed your trajectory in your professional life to change your identity and to say, now I'm a publisher. So it took me like 4 years to say that, and I still don't say it totally right. But yes, I'm a publisher. I'm publishing books for kids for 4 years. And now that's a project. It was like I come from France, as you can tell with my accent, and there was this little books in France which were really popular with music on it. And when and I had my first child in the States, and when I came back from the States, from France in the States, there was not this kind of books, and all my friends had bought these books to me, and it was truly a success. But in the States, they didn't have it, so I was like, "Oh, why not doing it?" I had a job in a bank. It was not meant to be, but I wanted to have like a creative project, and I was like, "Let's try to do 1 or 2 books, and we'll see." And I started to hand sell the book, to gain confidence in my project, because more you sell, more confident you are that you're doing something. And I started to sell 5,000, 10,000. And after 2 or 3 years, I decided to make it my career and to put all my focus and energy in it. And since we grow like by 10, so it's like now we're selling 60,000 books a year. So that's cool, and lots of hopefully more coming.
You mentioned you're a banker. at some stage. So were you a banker in France before you moved to the States? Did you move to the States for a banking job?
What I love was banking. It was already always in the big cities. So I didn't really want to do something that I would be like outside of the big cities. So that was like good plan for traveling and to visit, like, when you're in banking, you live in New York or Singapore or Paris or London. I mean, it was this kind of, I was very attracted by this kind of thing. So
Right.
That's exactly why I started to work in banking. And though I enjoyed it because it was like very stimulating to be with very smart people, very driven, very fast paced. I always knew that I was not like, I always felt as an outsider. I always felt like before being in the bank, I had no idea of that the kind of job I was doing existed. Like I had no idea. For me, it was like doctors, lawyers, and people in strange building doing whatever. I don't know what they were doing. So
sending emails
and going to the coffee machine. And I was really intrigued with what they were doing. And I really enjoyed being part of that and buying fancy clothes and, being, where this kind of label of, oh, I succeed. I'm here. I'm having my Prada bag, and so when I moved to the States, the reason why I moved to the States is because my husband was American, wanted to leave to the States, and he wanted to go to New York. And I said, oh, I really, I was okay with New York, but I really wanted to move to LA. So that's to Los Angeles. And so I in finance, as I said, most of the jobs are in New York. And so for me, it was a bit of an adventure to go to Los Angeles. I was like, okay, I'm going to do something totally different. I'm going to be an artist. And at the end, I was a finance person in Disney, which was not exactly, but I tried. And after that, I found a job in banking in Los Angeles because that was the end of my first artistic career.
Okay. So you mentioned that you started Cali Books because you saw this. I guess, is that what made you see the potential? Was that it was a very successful product in France, but did not exist in the US?
Yeah, I think that's what strikes me first. And also, I was not looking for a business idea. So paradoxically, I was not, it was like, I was looking for a project on the side that I could do and which I will enjoy doing. So I think if I saw that, like, do you think, am I going to sell books? That would have been more scary. I was like, oh, they don't have it. Let's let's make them know about this product and how to see how they react. But I didn't really expect that it was not a business plan. Not at all. It was like, oh, they don't have it. Let's show it. Or like, when you do a recipe and you're happy with the taste, and you're like, let's make them taste it. It's good.
I guess it's super interesting that you say that because my experience with creative things is that the moment when I started to do comedy again 4 years ago, I refused to put a business goal on it. And I was like, I would just want to enjoy it. I want to make it the best, the best set possible. I just want to be the best performer as I can be. And that has brought me a lot more actually success in this field than when I tried the first time, and I was stressing out so much, with a business plan. And I think in personal development, you hear a lot, people like Tony Robbins, you go and like, so what is your goal? Do you want to make $1 million out of your comedy? Do you want to make 10 millions? And it's in a way to think like that I found was super crushing and killed my creativity. And I guess it's interesting what you say, because you also in the beginning you were like, no, this is not a business project. This is something I'm doing for fun. I like the metaphor of the recipe. Of course, we're French, so we have to use that. Very cool. So that was. And can you? I see you have your books behind you. Can you show a little bit the concept so that people understand what it is, and then but you have to describe what you're doing as well for people who are listening on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. So, so the book is for 0 to 5. So it's really, my daughter was 6 months old. And you know how when you're new parents, you have an idea of what kind of parents you will be, and also, unfortunately, of what kind of child you will have. And sometimes that doesn't match. So my child in my head was reading books, and she was 4 months old. And I was picturing myself reading her The Little Prince and all the Aesop fables that I loved, and she would have really enjoyed listening to me. But she was 4 months old. So for people who have already had a 4 months old baby, usually they're more interested in anything than focusing on a book. But it was like now that I think about it, I'm like, I was really naive and kind of stupid to think that she will listen to me reading a book. But I was very bummed by it. So when I found this, it was like a little board book with a little button, but not like the way that we had them in the States with a plastic button. It was like very subtly put inside the page. And she was 4 months old, and she could press the button, and she started to engage and to like it. Because so that was like the miracle I was witnessing. It was how to make a baby interested in a book. And I'm not speaking about ours. We're like still on 4 months old baby, but she was still trying to go to the book. And I really loved this experience. And I did it for 2 or 3 months. I brought back from Paris like a suitcase of books. And she was something like 7 months old, and she will show the bookshelf because she wanted to play with it. And so that's why I was like, oh, I really love this product. But the way it was done, it was very French. It was very, and I wanted to do one that I could, that Americans could relate. And so the French one are more about like classical music.
Yeah.
And the little Mozart. Yes, because when we are French, we want, we're little kids to love Mozart, which is fair enough. Why not? That's good. Mozart is great for kids. But Americans, they were more into nursery rhymes, which I didn't know because I was not raised in this culture. So I was like, when people were singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, I was like, what do they say? So I wanted to learn these songs and learn about them. And I realized that it was like very old nursery rhymes, from most of them from England, and with meanings. And I thought it was really nice to give them to her. Also, I thought it was much nicer for me to not sing, because that was a disaster. So I just created nursery rhymes books, and with a little button that she could press on. She was only 6 months old at this stage. Yeah. Now it was 9 months old, and she loved it. I mean, and she has this. She's now 4 years old, and I don't want to think that it's because of what I did during her, because you always have this responsibility as parents. What you did, that's why now they're like that. But she loves books, so I don't know if it's my part, but now she will spend.
Of course it is.
But yeah, it's and I really think that these little books, starting very early, it was a routine, and she was like feeling very empowered by doing something. She was not passive. She was pressing a button, and when she was pressing the button, the parents were like, "Wow, you're so smart!" And she could feel this encouragement by our reaction. So that's why I wanted to. So that's the book that I'm doing. And now I have a new line, but we'll mention that after.
Okay. So I want to react on something that you said earlier. You said all the French books, they were about, the kids have to enjoy Mozart and have to enjoy Beethoven. And actually, I think this is such a French, the French perfectionism, which my experience of the French school system and my experience of my French mother has been really, is really not encouraging of you taking risks, because there's just so much pressure on you. And actually, I'm sorry, but I'm laughing when you were saying, she's 4 months old and she's not interested in the Little Prince. What's going on? And I was the same. I try not to do this with my kids, but okay, thank God I have a more relaxed wife from the Ukraine, and she's like, Ben, take it easy, But I did the same, but instead of when I could not interest a 4-year-old in the Little Prince, I was like, oh, there's a problem with this kid, Instead, you found a solution, and you actually found, in a weird way, you brought the French perfectionism of, the kids, we have to interest them in reading, but then you adapted it with the nursery rhymes and everything. So you managed to kind of combine the two, to create this product. And do you, we don't have to talk about our mothers for a long time, but in a way, our mothers were friends. So that is how we ended up childhood friends since we are 2 years old. And the experience with my mother was, she's very French, so a lot of pressure to succeed, to be very good, and since our mothers were friends, would you say that it was the same with yours?
Yeah, and there was this part of it, but not like. So my mother suffered from this education. She was from and she wanted to react. It's always very difficult to react from where you come from, especially when you succeed, because she's a medical doctor as your mother. And she's like, okay, that worked for me, so that should work for my kids. But still, that makes me unhappy. And she was really in this questioning mode. And she said, she, of course, valued a lot educational success and everything, but she said happiness is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And just putting it this way, it was she would say to my grandparents, because my grandparents the first thing they will ask is to show our grades. And depending on our grades, the present was not the same. So my cousins already had great presents, and mine were little presents, because they were so much more successful than me. We're 4. They have 2 cousins and my brother, and I'm the only one without a PhD. So it was but that was so but my grandparents will be like that. But my mother was giving me another way of thinking, also about failure and perfectionism. That's something that I'm so grateful that my mother did it. She always told me about her failures. She was very, very transparent. So she was a medical doctor, but she had this myth of the working girl. I don't know if you saw the movie with Melanie Griffiths and Harrison Ford.
I didn't know.
The working girl in the 80s was was very the businesswoman. Was super well dressed and going from one flight to another flight. And even if she was a medical doctor, I think it was her dream to be this kind of person. So she started not opening her practice, but in the pharmaceutical industry. And and she started like that, and she's got fired. She found a new job, and she got fired again. And And she's been very transparent in that. And she said, my failure, that's because I failed twice. And my father was like, okay, just open your practice. Stop trying to work in the industry. And she said that was the most,
Yeah.
that was the most, she was very grateful for these failures, because she said, thanks to that, I had my practice. I was also a little bit older, so I didn't put that much pressure on me. And I was able to, she was not working on Wednesdays, so on Wednesdays afternoon to take care of us. So, and she was very, very transparent about, you can fail, but that's good. That's part of the process.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'm glad then she met my mother. She probably softened her a bit. It would have been way worse. So Carinne, so you said it was a side project, and you're selling books, and you're like, okay, maybe you said earlier that you wanted to do this, you wanted to dedicate full time. Tell me a little bit about taking that decision and then the aftermath.
Yeah. So this decision I've never been taken by me, which so what happened? I had my daughter. I came back from maternity leave, and when I really enjoyed my career, because it was I knew I was doing the same job for 10 years. So of course I was doing a different stage in the company, but I was kind of confident that I knew what I was doing. So it was comfortable. And when I came back from maternity leave, they hired a woman who was same position, and honestly, she was better than I was. So it was I didn't say it this way when I came back, of course not. But it's like thinking about it. Yeah, she was better. She was older. She had more experience. She was a threat. And when I had my second, after 6 months, I was like, I was not in a good position, because my boss realized, I think, that she was better than me. And I was on the track for a promotion. And since I was like put on the side. So for 10 years, I was very successful in my career. I could change job, and it was like, everyone was like, oh, that's good. You're doing good. And it was like and for the first time, I was in a position where my job was not giving me the same reward in terms of confidence that it should be. As I told you, I went in banking. I had no expectation. So it was easy to thrive, because I didn't really, it's weird to say it this way, but I didn't really care on a personal level. So I was just doing my thing, and that worked. I came back from maternity leave. First, I was not able to work as many hours as I used to, because I had just a baby to feed. There was this woman who was giving me some questioning about myself and my performance. And in addition of that, my boss was like, you're not working as many hours as you used to. I'm not going to promote you. And also you're going to have a second child, because yes, just after I got pregnant a second time. And for him, it was like too much. Once it's okay, two, it's really like, so.
This, I'm laughing. It's very tragic to hear, but I mean, it's because it's not like this happened in the 50s, right? This was a few years ago.
Exactly. And so I was, my confidence was totally, I've been sidetracked. And I was not enjoying as much, because, I didn't have the same reward of people saying, oh, she's really good. It was like very unsettling. And I left for maternity leave, but for me, I always worked and I couldn't see myself not working. So I came back from maternity leave. That was not the happiest day in my life. But that's when my boss said, no, I'm surprised you come back. So he didn't expect me to come back from maternity leave. So after 10 days of not speaking to me, he finally told me, no, I don't think it's a good idea. And I was fired.
Wow. Oh my God.
So...
But Carinne, it's funny. I mean, because you're saying that you got to a point when your career, your day career, stopped giving you the confidence in your ability and in yourself, and kind of the same thing happened to me. When I post some stuff on LinkedIn about like how I'm inspired to start this journey to be a speaker on the topic of confidence, an entertainer, moderator, etc. But there's one part that I don't talk a lot about, is that 2 years ago, it's not like it was not a demotion, but I stopped being invited to like a symbolic meeting in the company where the whole management group would meet. And when I talked to people about it, we're like, oh, get over it. It's like, anyway, it's more an announcement meeting or whatever. But it was very symbolic, and it really affected my confidence. And I think it was the first time also where it was like, wow, like my main job. And as you said, in the very beginning, you talked about changing career, what you do, and changing your identity. And I think your work in general is so much part of who you are. And after having made the decision to quit, even if I made the decision, I was crushed. Because it was like it's so much part of your personality. But to go back to the point is, yeah, it did come a point where I stopped being, I don't know, my confidence was really questioned. And I think this is when I started to hit like a real, rock of confidence in me. I said, you know what? This wasn't cool. And I'm gonna do my thing now. And did you go through a similar moment?
Oh yeah, I went to see a therapist, and I remember telling her that there was no question that I hated most than what you're doing, and it was like a very, very. And I remember one day, bear in mind that I'm in Los Angeles, and there was like a blogger that I'm following, and she has like millions of people following her. And I told my brother, oh, she's a blogger. She said, go talk to her. And she was really nice. Her husband was French, so there was like immediately a connection. She asked me, what are you doing? And she said, you work in fashion? And I was like, no. I'm having a really, my job sucks and I suck at my job. Something as bad as that. My brother was looking at me like, I said, okay, that's time for me to go to see a therapist. And she was like, I was describing myself in a way, and even she was really nice, but she was like, okay, if she can't even like herself, why should I continue this conversation? Obviously, this person is like.
Were you still in the bank
when you?
I was in the bank about to get fired. I don't remember. No, I was pregnant at this time, so I was like, I could see that I was like. And it has been, and after when I left the bank, it was very hard because at the beginning when I started the business, I was not able to pay myself. I was, and for me it was like my therapist said, but say that you're publishing books. I say I can't because I don't earn money. Like it was very linked to the fact that I was not able to earn money.
It's funny because people who do comedy, they also they go through the same question. When do you call yourself a comedian? When are you allowed to call yourself a comedian? And on another podcast I'm doing, I was talking to this girl who's making her first step in comedy, but she's been for 10 years a video director and made a living as a video director. Could not call herself a director. She felt, but I haven't earned an Oscar, or I haven't been on Netflix, and therefore, I'm not really a director.
Yeah, that's this imposter syndrome is really hard on us.
It's really heavy. And now, do you feel more legitimate? I mean, in the beginning, you were like, I am a publisher.
Yeah,
so
in front of your mirror.
Weird?
Yes, and lots of practice in front of the mirror. And no, now, because I spend so many hours, and the fact that there's money in, that helps. And also the time. I think it's also a question of, things that seems and impossible, but if you just leave time, that comes as soon as that didn't happen from one day to another, but it gradually became easier to say. And I think it's just, when you cut your hair and you see yourself in the mirror, like, oh, and you just get used to it.
Did you consider quitting?
Yeah. Yeah, many times. I'm laughing because I think it's always a bit funny, it's always lots of drama. I don't think I really ever consider it seriously, but I definitely used it when I was my husband, and would say, oh, I'm fed up and I'm going to quit. And so I say it.
It's like,
I've done comedy for 4 years now. I've already quit 15 times,
But did you always, like, I don't think, there's two levels on this question. How many times I said it? I said it probably 15 times. How many times I truly think that I will quit? I don't think I've ever think it.
No.
I've ever thought it. Yeah. I thought I wouldn't, that what I have as fear won't be me quitting. It will be more like the company quitting me, like it's not working. And that's more my stress is like, so for the moment we're almost the only one, I don't have competition. And not having competition is great because you have like, it's easy to understand why it's great to not have competition. But not having competition, it's very scary because you're like, what's going to happen? Am I that good, or is it because there's no choice? Or like, what will happen which will they eventually do? What will happen when they will, like, the big ones will realize that this kind of product is really good for kids and they will want to do it. It will crush me or not, or maybe I'm good enough.
Yeah, it will happen because you're having a fantastic year this year, aren't you? I mean, without revealing all the all the secrets, but would you say that this year do you say your business has taken off and you're able to pay yourself and live on it, or you're still not there yet?
Yeah, so 2019 was the year I decided to be full-time on it. That's when I quit my job February 2019, and I invest a lot this year too to me. And 2020 was really the year where I was selling the books and I could pay employees. I haven't paid myself because of the growth, and I want to invest everything in the in the business. So it doesn't make lots of sense for me to pay myself because I prefer to sustain the growth without external capital. So, but I don't feel, even if I don't have a paycheck, I still feel that I'm building capital. I'm building something.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't have, it's not a rent, but I'm building a house. So it's not, I don't receive the rent yet, but because I'm building the house, it's okay.
Okay. So
and I pay people, so that makes a huge difference. It's like there's like 4 people relying on me for their monthly paycheck.
Wow, you have 4 employees right now.
Yeah,
congratulations.
that feels really good and very, very scary, but very good. So it's like, okay, I don't pay me, but I pay the employees. So
One thing that you said, and I completely agree, is that you need to see. I mean, when you have evidence, and for you the evidence was the sales, that gives you confidence. And a lot of the personal development books are like, you have to be a rock of confidence yourself, and you have to believe, and when you believe, then you'll have the confidence. But I find it really difficult to ground a belief in thin air. The looking in the mirror and saying I am successful, I'm a comedian, or that doesn't work. Like, the moment of confidence for me, so for you was the sales. For me was last year in the month of December. Like, I had a series of gigs, and I was like, wow, I'm really getting a lot of laughs. And it was kind of like the evidence. And I was also doing trainings, and people in my company, they wanted me to speak, they wanted me to deliver presentations and trainings, and this is when I was like, okay, there's evidence in the audience in comedy, there's evidence in the presentation skills, and this is where I actually started to have confidence. And it was a slow build, of creating evidence, but I found it, for me, impossible to without some sign that. And do you feel the same? Do you think you need evidence, or can you base your confidence on just your own beliefs in your head?
Oh no, I need feedback. I need feedback from people. I'm reading all my Amazon reviews. Of course, as I have this tendency to only read the bad ones and to only remember, like, I don't know, 1,000 Amazon reviews, and I can tell you the 100 that are not good, or less than that. It's the one that you focus.
I'm so the same.
So that I totally understand. However, I can see what this that will feed it, that these feedbacks will feed the inner confidence that you have inside you. And I do think that at some point, like, for example, something happened 2 weeks ago. I was doing a stock take of my inventory, something that it's quite normal to do. You have books, you count them. That's what I bought. That's what I sell. That's what I should have. I do that, and I realize that there are 15,000 books missing. So just to give you an idea on how it looks, 15,000 books, it's like an old container from China missing.
Yes.
And it's like, it's not exactly like your keys or your phone that you maybe let them somewhere. It's like a full container of books. So I realized that I mainly sell on Amazon. I realized that Amazon, when I was sending them books, they were losing lots of books, a lot. And I had to put the loss in my P&L. So my P&L is the thing that I'm looking at every day. And I'm like, oh, I'm positive. And from one day to another, I went from positive to negative. And it was a feedback, because I took it as a feedback. You speak about the sales, the P&L. This is kind of feedback that gives you like, okay, what I'm doing is, because it's also my question is, am I doing something sustainable? Like, is it right that am I just burning the money for my kids, or am I building something? And that was like this P&L, which was negative. And that's the reason I speak about that, is because it's good to hear feedback, but it's also good to not hear them too much. And I decided, no, to be honest, my husband told me just can and gave me perspective. And he has, my husband, I need to speak about him. It sounds really cheesy, but he has so much confidence in me and in the business that when I'm lacking of it, he will infuse me this confidence. And he said, just don't look at that. Just stop looking at this number. Because sometimes you have to not listening to the feedback. You just have to focus on this little voice saying, okay, the signs are, okay, that's red, okay, got it. But now I have to close all this feedback and just continue.
And you have to get going.
Because you're going to have so many, do you think, everyone in my family, which I love my family, but everyone told me, there's no way you're going to quit your job to make children's books. I mean, and it was only people who loved me truly who was like, it's not going to work.
What did I tell you?
And you were always very interested and supportive on what I was doing. You have never put yourself in the position of knowing what will happen. You did never, because also it's your nature. You're more like, you're not going to say everything's going to be fine. You're going to be, but you were very supportive also because you knew that at some point I will change career. So it was like, oh yeah, no, you're not like my mother.
So, but so you mentioned the support of your husband, very important. I mean, that's also, it's good to have a support system of people. Sometimes it's a lot of pressure to just be the own producer of your confidence, and you need other people to give it to you as well.
Yeah. And I try to not rely too much on that, but it's true that when it's like it's a tough week, a tough day or whatever, it's good to have someone who tells you that that's going to work. Also, my husband, I think the way why he reacts this way, it's because it's based on thing. He doesn't blindly trust me. He never let me with his credit card in a mall in Los Angeles. I mean, he wouldn't trust me for that. So it's like I can see that he trusts me, but he has the indication, like he has some enough data for him to. And so that's why also I'm like, okay, if he is okay with that, that means, yeah, we can continue.
I think we took very similar decisions, not at the same time, and probably I followed your lead. You inspired me, but ultimately, it was about leaving a system of people that were making us feel unconfident about ourselves, and focus on projects and focus on people and environments that made us confident, and I think it's a beautiful thing to do and very empowering. I mean, you look so happy. I think I am also. It's a bit too soon to say, but I feel happy. I have my freaking out moments, of course.
It's normal for you to freak out. It's who you are. I mean, you've been always very. You can. Anxiety. I don't know if it's a term you want me to use instead of freak out. It's part of who we are, because I think we're very similar on that. And that's not going to disappear. That's just going to be for good reasons. Instead of like this anxiety, which is part of us because it's how we built. And when I say we, I speak to Ben and I. I'm glad that it's not for all people who are like that. But it's just that I'm still very anxious. But when I realize why am I anxious, it's because I'm building something that I'm proud of. But I'm still very anxious. it's just the purpose which is different and which makes it okay. I haven't slept. I've dreamt about a book lost in the sea. Okay, that was not fun, but at least the reason I did it's because of what I'm building, and the goal is exactly where I want to be.
Okay. Cool. Now the sales pitch.
So we're just launching we launched it yesterday, a new book. It's a new series, and it's like it's all the classics, the Three Little Pigs, because my project was to do a publishing house where I will grow up with my children. So now when I give this kind of books at my daughter was like 4.5, she will read it for 2 minutes and she will be like, what's next? So I had to have a next plan. And so this is a collection, which I really like because it's a classic, so that's not new. But what is new is you can record your voice. On each page, you have a button and you can record your voice. And that meant a lot to me because my kids live very far from my parents, and my parents really love to read them books. So I wanted a book where I could keep my mother's voice, and that they could listen to their grandmother reading the book. So now that's what they're doing, and so it's a bilingual. You can transform it in a bilingual book because you have the English version, which is pre-recorded, and my mother read it in French, and it's like, so I really love this new project, and it looks really beautiful because that's what I care the most.
Amazing.
Okay, thank you so much, Carinne, for being my first guest on this podcast. It was very, very interesting talking to you, and I hope people who are listening are getting also the kind of ideas and support when they are working through their own doubts and anxiety and on their path to more confidence.
Yeah, hope so too. And thank you for inviting me. Very honored.
My pleasure. Thank you, Carinne. See you soon. Ciao. Thank you for listening to the Superpower of Confidence. Please subscribe to this podcast, and if you're using iTunes, please leave a review. This really helps. To find out more about Carinne's children's book, go to calibooks.com. And if you'd like to book me as a speaker, a trainer, or a comedian, or find out more about me, subscribe to my newsletter, go to bendelahaye.com. All the links will be in the show notes. Until next time, take care of yourself. Thank you. Bye.